Welcome back to the channel. Today, you are about to experience the continuation of a story that has taken the gospel world by storm, the explosive fallout from the 2025 Stellar Gospel Music Awards. If you saw our previous video, 2025 Stellar Awards Chaos, Jamal Roberts versus Jonathan McReynolds, then you already know the stage was set for something unforgettable. But what unfolded afterward, the conversations, the feuds, the alliances, and the shockwaves across gospel circles, is even more dramatic than what happened on that stage. And before we dive into this gripping saga, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next, because this isn't just music news. This is gospel history being rewritten in real time. The moment the final notes of that controversial duet faded into silence at the Stellas, the auditorium was suspended in an awkward mix of awe and tension. Some in the crowd were on their feet, screaming, clapping, shaking their heads in disbelief. Others sat stiffly, arms crossed, whispering to their neighbors about how the night had gone too far. Jamal Roberts walked off that stage like a man who had just lit a match in a room filled with gasoline. Jonathan McReynolds, by contrast, wore a composed but heavy expression, almost as if he knew the fallout was going to be messy. And messy it was, because within minutes, the entire industry was ablaze. Social media caught fire. TikTok edits of Roberts' raw verses flooded feeds. Clips of McReynolds' calming lines were spliced into memes about wisdom versus rebellion. The hashtags #RobertsRevolution and #McReynoldsMoment started trending side by side, a perfect symbol of how divided the audience had become. Younger fans celebrated Roberts as the face of a new, unfiltered gospel. They said, finally, someone telling the truth the way we live it. Older fans, meanwhile, blasted him as reckless, disrespectful, even dangerous. And caught between those extremes was McReynolds, whose legacy suddenly felt vulnerable simply because he dared to share the stage with someone so volatile. But what the public didn't immediately see was what happened backstage. Eyewitnesses claimed that when Roberts stormed off, producers were furious. The performance had allegedly gone off script, lasting longer than intended and throwing off the show's timing. One insider said there was a moment when executives debated cutting Roberts' mic mid-performance, fearing his lines were pushing too far. But by then, the genie was out of the bottle. McReynolds himself was reportedly calm, but conversations with him afterward revealed he was not entirely comfortable with the improvisations. Yet he defended Roberts in that moment, saying gospel music had always thrived when artists took risks. That defense, however, didn't shield him from the critics. The story spilled beyond the awards into churches, radio programs, and blogs. Pastors preached sermons about the dangers of blurring the sacred with the secular, with some not-so-subtle references to Roberts' performance. Others defended him, arguing that the Psalms of old were brutally honest about their struggles and doubts, and that Roberts was simply walking in that tradition. Radio talk shows debated whether the Stellas had been desecrated or revived. And everywhere you turned, Roberts' name was either praised as a prophet of a new era or cursed as a reckless rebel dragging the genre into chaos. McReynolds, for his part, became the reluctant figure at the center of the storm. He wasn't new to controversy. Every artist who pushes boundaries feels some pushback, but this time, the stakes felt different. His carefully built reputation as a steady, spiritually grounded leader was suddenly questioned. Why would Jonathan lend his voice, his credibility, to something so out of line? Critics asked. But younger fans pushed back, saying his presence kept the performance anchored and proved he wasn't afraid of engaging with the next generation. The divide deepened not just between fans, but between generations of artists. Behind closed doors, industry insiders whispered that this might mark a turning point in gospel music. Some said Roberts was being groomed by powerful managers to take gospel into arenas it had never entered before. More hip-hop collaborations, more raw storytelling, more bold risks. Others dismissed him as a flash in the pan, someone chasing controversy for attention. But whether you loved him or hated him, you couldn't ignore him. And that was the point. Roberts himself fueled the fire by posting cryptic captions on Instagram. Things like, "If truth feels like chaos, maybe you've been living in lies." His post got hundreds of thousands of reactions, further solidifying him as the most polarizing figure in gospel music. Meanwhile, Jonathan McReynolds took a different route. He remained quieter, measured, releasing only a short statement thanking fans for their support and insisting that gospel music must always hold space for honesty and grace. But that didn't stop bloggers from speculating about tension between him and Roberts. Were they truly united in vision, or had Roberts pulled him into a storm he never asked for? Some reports suggested their rehearsal had been rocky, with Roberts pushing for more improvisation and McReynolds pushing back. But the truth is, no one outside that green room really knows what conversations took place. What we do know is that the image of those two men on stage together has become a symbol for gospel's identity crisis in 2025. Fire and wisdom, rebellion and reverence, revolution, and roots colliding in front of millions. To understand just how seismic this clash was, you have to look at gospel's history. This isn't the first time the genre has been shaken by controversy. Back in the 1990s, Kirk Franklin was accused of bringing too much hip-hop into gospel when he introduced rap verses and heavy beats into worship. Choir directors warned that he was corrupting the sound, but within a decade, Franklin was being honored as a trailblazer. Mary Mary faced backlash in the early 2000s for their R&B-infused gospel, only to later be celebrated as pioneers. In every era, gospel has wrestled with this tension between tradition and change. But Roberts and McReynolds' performance was different, not just because of the rawness, but because it happened in a time when social media amplifies everything instantly. Within days, gospel blogs declared the stellar performance the most talked about moment in gospel in years. Some said Roberts had brought gospel back into mainstream conversation. Others fear it was proof the genre was losing its sacred boundaries. Gospel veterans weighed in too. A few quietly applauded the boldness, while others criticized Roberts for what they saw as arrogance. And yet, even those who condemned him couldn't stop talking about him. In a genre often accused of being overlooked in the larger music industry, that kind of attention was unheard of, and here's where the story deepens. Rumors swirled that Roberts was already in talks to collaborate with artists outside the gospel sphere, leveraging the buzz from the Stellas. McReynolds, on the other hand, reportedly turned down several interview requests, perhaps wary of fanning the flames. Some wondered if their partnership would continue, or if the Stellas would be remembered as a one-time explosion that left both men walking away in opposite directions. The drama wasn't just about what had happened. It was about what might happen next. Would Roberts reshape gospel? Would McReynolds distance himself? Would the industry itself fracture further along generational lines? What's undeniable is that the Stellar Award of 2025 had become a landmark moment, etched into gospel story alongside Kirk Franklin's infamous controversies and Mary Mary's cultural breakthroughs. Jamal Roberts may be young, raw, and brash, but has already forced an entire genre to have uncomfortable conversations. Jonathan McReynolds, steady and seasoned, has reminded us that even in chaos, grace can hold the line. Together, they created a performance that was bigger than either of them individually. It was a mirror reflecting the struggle of gospel music itself, to honor its sacred heritage while refusing to be irrelevant in a rapidly changing world. And if you're still here watching, you already know this story isn't over. Roberts is too bold to fade quietly. McReynolds is too respected to walk away unnoticed, and gospel music is too powerful to stay stagnant. So buckle up, because the fallout from the Stellas is still unfolding, and we'll be here to bring you every twist and turn. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter in this ongoing drama. Because if one thing has been proven, it's that gospel music can still shock the world, and the next shock might be just around the corner.